Hi everyone, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we're talking about our spring equinox. And I really kind of came across an interesting story that I wanted to share with you. I found this online and I was kind of like, wow, this is really interesting, of kind of how our spring equinox and kind of like our Easter celebrations began. I was just kind of like, wow, it's not a long story, just want to let you know, it's just kind of a little bit like, wow, I kind of knew some of that, I think, but it was kind of interesting to have all of it. So here we go. So let's talk about this. As we kind of get closer and closer to spring, we kind of get ready for our spring equinox. And I will tell you, spring equinox is a time that a lot of people do rituals. Your churches do rituals, all that kind of stuff. Religions do rituals as well. But a lot of people celebrate the equinox differently than everybody else. And so rituals are usually how people do that. Lighting of candles, kind of getting ready for the symbols of the season. And Eostre is the queen of the dawn and the symbol of the season of fertility, of moving into that equinox, kind of like the queen of spring. I was like, ooh, interesting. She comes with her own totem, which is a rabbit, Easter. We're going to get to that in just a second. And it's one of those, it's kind of bringing in the light and the renewal of like, not only the outside as the spring, all the trees start to come around and, bloom and that sort of thing. And I'm just starting to see that now, like of certain trees starting to bloom. But I will tell you that this keeps coming, and it's kind of like that, inside as well, inside for us, we're ready for those spring cleanings. We're ready to make some changes. We're maybe ready to update things. So this is going to be a great time of just like, here we go. We're ready to bring in the spring queen and make some changes for ourselves. It's kind of the perfect balance when we kind of move from the spring equinox to the winter equinox. It's kind of like that kind of balance of energy. Not only do we balance in the energy because we have so many months of summer and so many months of winter, but then we kind of balance our day. It's kind of like the only 2 days in the whole year that like we have equal number of hours of daylight and darkness, and that kind of just brings a lot of balance to us. And I think it's kind of one of the things that most people love about the spring is kind of that balance of energy as we start moving into all of that. Now, in the Northern Hemisphere where I live, we will be celebrating our first day of spring and Eostre on March 20th, 2023. This is a time of like hopes and moving forward and kind of rekindling that fire of kind of getting out there, kind of getting into action. That's where I think that kind of that spring clean is. Let's clean the house, and then we're ready to kind of move out into the world and make some changes and differences there. It's kind of like, how do we prepare to kind of make these changes? What ideas do you have moving forward, and what are you going to do with them? And how do you prepare for this part of kind of like bringing in like the spring into the summer for all of us? So how do you celebrate that? And to give our thanks for the solitude. A lot of times during the winter time, it's one of those, we barely see friends, we barely do anything, but it's really a kind of a dark time of just kind of like that cave time for a lot of people. Like, let's take a step back and let's just relax and take it easy and that sort of thing. And then when as we get closer to the spring, it's kind of like, ta-da, here I am again, world, I'm ready to go. And so this is a great time to kind of like bring that forward. It's one of those kind of like looking at not only our spring cleaning, but also kind of like spring cleaning our calendars, our patterns. How are we doing with things? Are the changes that we made at the new year, are we still keeping those? Are we adjusting or modifying them? Or are we kind of dumping them all together? It just depends on where we're going with this. Let's talk about the history of Eostre and spring traditions. Basically, in northern Germany and Europe, people worship a goddess called Eostre, and it's one of those, that kind of Eostre name kind of ended up turning into Easter, as they pronounced it, Eostre. Her feast was a day held on the first full moon after the vernal equinox. So we still hold Easter on the first weekend of the first full moon after the equinox. So it's one of those, like, we're going into like March, we're going into that springtime, that equinox, and then as soon as that full moon comes, the first full moon after that time frame, boom, that's when we're celebrating Easter. And they still do that to this day. So many religions still hold to that calendar to this day. And it's really kind of like opening up and embellishing all of our awakening world of like the flowers and the plants that are now blooming, and kind of just embellishing all of that. And that kind of also comes inside our home too. It's kind of like, what do we want to embody in this kind of like these new colors and this new light in the energy? I mean, even our clothing changes, color changes. We usually go from like the dark winter clothes into like lighter colors and pastels and pinks and greens and blues and light colors. All of that energy starts to switch and change for us. Now, eggs were sacred to Eostre and were kind of a cycle or a symbol of kind of like our new renewing cycle. And that's where we kind of got the Easter egg from. And then people started dyeing the Easter eggs to kind of amplify that color on them, because they're just white or brown. It's not really beautiful on its own. So people started coloring them and dyeing them and that sort of thing. And so that kind of just brings open all of that. Most people are familiar with the whole Easter egg and how we dye them, but they used to dye them with plants and flowers and different things like onion skins and different seeds, and boiling those and kind of making a dye out of that, and then putting the Easter eggs in there. One of the things I thought was interesting, in Persia, they have been dyeing or coloring Easter eggs for about 1,500 years. And that's how old these traditions are. It's like, wow, this is really cool. Now, I will tell you that a lot of indigenous or ancient cultures held rituals during this time frame, fasting, or like fasting beforehand and then feasting afterwards, the celebration of this kind of really great equinox for all of us. The Mayans even honored sacred days and kind of celestial events, especially on the equinoxes. The sun that sets on the equinox is the western face of the Mayan temple of Castillo. And it bathes it all in full light. So if you go down and you watch a lot of the Mayan temples in that area, as the sun sets on that equinox day, or even rises on the equinox day, it's shooting through different buildings and bringing light or attention to different things. So it's kind of like, wow. Kind of the celebrating of equinoxes and our Easter time frame and our Eostre goddess is really interesting and very spectacular. And I think it's a great way that our whole northern hemisphere starts bringing in like an energy of new light as we get more and more daylight during that time frame of hope and fertility and growth and new beginnings, and kind of the return of our warm sun, because it's one of those, it's been months that we've had like really, really warm days. Okay, maybe this year's a little differently, but it's one of those, it's kind of like we're celebrating that light and that perfection in our world of bringing all of these changes together for us. Let's do some angel cards and let's get us a little bit more insight into all things spring equinox and our goddess Eostre. Got a couple of them jumping out, like literally they're jumping out. First one is spiritual growth. This is something that I have felt is coming in this really strong this spring, really strong coming in of a lot of people wanting to kind of open up to their spiritual gifts and growing their different energies. And I will tell you that this is only going to amplify this. This is going to be, oh my gosh, amplifying all of this energy of like, yes, I want to be in control of my abilities. I want to understand what my growth is and where do I need to go next. So a lot of people are stepping up into that energy, soulmate energy. This I get is kind of finding that soulmate, and your soulmate is your spiritual growth. Kind of like, who do I want to love, who I'm going to become. That is a very powerful statement right there. It's like, ideas and inspiration. This comes around a lot during Easter because we're kind of really, like I said, updating our whole world, bringing kind of like that spring, the flowers, the new into our world, and kind of bringing that all around of what do we want to bring in next to our world, and how do we want to celebrate this new arrival of this amazing dominant sunlight on our northern hemisphere. How do we want to celebrate that? Answered prayers. Answered prayers are really all about kind of like, yes, I think I'm not a person that really loves those like dark dreary days and the super rainy days. So to me it's an answered prayer of like, I love the sunlight. I love having that on my body. I loved, just like, oh my gosh, I'm like out there like, yes, I need rays, because I don't sleep well if I don't get enough sun rays on my body. So I'm like, yes, I need the rays. I need to have some sunlight on me, and I need to get that energy going in the right direction. And the sun does that naturally. This is all about truth and integrity. It's one of those, I thought this story was a great story, and I don't know if it's truthful or not, but it sounds amazing. And it really sounds amazing to be able to connect to our spring goddess, Eostre, and kind of connecting to the holistic side, or the kind of like the ancient side of what's gone on our planet for centuries. Definitely. This is forgiveness. It's one of those, this is kind of some of the things that you may want to be getting rid of, kind of like if you've been holding on to grudges, and certain people hold on to grudges way longer than others, but getting rid of those old things and kind of be getting ready for your brand new stuff, because that's going to bring in some power for you. Of kind of bringing in a lot of power, a lot of energy, a lot of insight into what's going on, and allowing that to really affect us. What is it that's going to affect us more than anything else? Is our power, being able to step in. And if we are holding on to unforgiveness or anything else, it's holding us back. Our last card is abundance. I love abundance as anybody does, but I think it really brings in a very powerful energy for all of us to step into that spring power of kind of everything kind of blooming, that Mother Earth kind of like, boom, here it goes. Because all of a sudden Mother Earth seemed like she's dreaming away and sleeping, and then all of a sudden flowers and plants and trees just start to bloom, and it's like, wow, that is amazing and beautiful at the same time. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.